In this part, I'm going to talk about the Fstorm settings, and hopefully I can cover all the settings. I, again, not gonna go into the detail and show example of like each detail, each settings are going to do. I'm gonna just describe it, and then you can explore yourself. And if you have any question, I am super happy to answer. But just before we go into the settings and describing the setting, I just wanted to show you how I put a few shortcuts on my right click, like Fstorm RT mode, object properties, proxy exporter, scene lister, scene conversation. I just do customize user interface in quads, and in Fstorm here, I just put this stuff here so I have access on with my right click. So I just described that if you see, I just right click and then do something and then the render starts. So it's because I put the shortcut here instead of going to interactive render and then run the RT mode. I just have it on right click, similar to the other stuff. So about the setting, we skip about and license, which we described in the previous video. Kernel setting, interactive, tone mapping, environment, and camera. I would say these are the most important part of the setting, which we are going to work a lot or change them a lot. So I'm gonna keep this part for the end of the video. I'm gonna start with the denoiser. This is a Fstorm new. I mean, it's not really new, but yeah, Fstorm in the beginning it didn't have any denoiser, but now it has. And I use it a lot, usually not for the final render, not for the final preview, but for the not for the final render, just for the preview. And it helps a lot to get like a sense of the scene and how it looks, especially with the lighting. For example, if you want to work on the detail on the material, for example, if you want to see how your glossiness is working on your wood material, etc., it's not a good idea to have the Fstorm denoiser on. But I must say, I must admit, the denoiser is pretty good. Even for these kind of detail, you still can use it, but I don't use it personally. So feel free to experiment yourself. And just for the sake of preview, I mean, I have I took one of my old files. This has like more than, I don't know, 6-7 years old age. And yeah, I just hided the furniture. So basically it's empty room with my favorite chair in it. And basically this is going to be the scene where we experiment as much as we could. I mean, if we need to go to exterior, we're going to go to exterior, but for the interior and a lot of stuff, we're going to use this scene. So for the denoiser, you see, I start the Fstorm interactive render, which is RT mode, which I describe. I put it on my right click here. I'm describing this for the people who have no experience with the Fstorm. And you can see here, it's been 2 minutes and I have 1,700 samples are already passed. And you can see it's still a bit noisy, but I can have a sense of lighting and how material and everything is working. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to close it. I'm going to turn on the denoiser, and then we have to use the digital noise and denoiser elements in order for denoiser to work. And the threshold, the higher number you put, the less your image is going to be denoised, and the lower number is going to make more washed out image, make your image more denoised. So you have to find the sweet spot if you are going to use it for final preview, even if you are going to, especially if you are going to use that for for animation. I mean, with a little bit experience, you're going to understand what I mean. For quality, I usually keep it on balanced, but you can put it on high speed, which is again high speed, or you can put it on high quality, which is slower but better quality. So now when I run my RT, so you can see from after 22 samples, I get a kind of similar to the image we had with 1,600, 700 samples with 2 minutes rendering, but this is like 2 seconds of rendering. I know there are like some problems here in the scene, but in order to get the how general scene is looking, and then how are the lighting and the material, how are they working together, this is perfect. This is like pretty fast. And one thing I also wanted to mention, I don't know if I mentioned it in the previous video. If okay, let me bring my Chrome. So if you go to downloads, I think I didn't mention it. Yeah, this is your last FSM version, and these are the new features you have in FSM Render, and you can of course read through them. At the end of the course, we're going to cover all of that, and also when there is new feature, we're going to cover that as well. But one thing I really notice is this one. The speed up bitmap compression is now super quick. It's like, and you saw how fast the scene was loading, and I found that very impressive. Very good work by Andre. And yeah, just wanted to mention that. So this is FSM denoiser. I use it on some animations and stuff, and my client work, and it works really good. Really good, yeah. But for final image, usually I don't use it because I like a little bit of grain. I usually add a grain in my renders myself, but a little bit of noise and just yeah, not having this digital noise is good. But yeah, you can see how fast it is. Like in 7 seconds and 60 samples, we get a good result. And if I let it go more, the result is going to be better and better. So yeah, I'm going to keep that on for now. Interactive rendering if you have network rendering setup, which I don't, and you can just play it here, put it here, and then play with the setting and everything and connect it. For the tools, we have scene converter, which is again converting the scene from other renderer, and it's usually working pretty good, I would say. And I always use this. I never use any other script or anything like that. And yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I haven't used it for a while because in the beginning you convert the scene a lot from other renderer, but once you use the renderer, once you use FSTOM a lot, you have pretty much all your assets and everything in FSTOM, so you're not going to use that much. But it's still sometimes if I want to buy a model from 3D Sky or from anywhere else, I just use it. Scene lister, this is also very helpful. You can filter the stuff you have in your scene, and for example, light materials, and yeah, whatever you have in your scene, you can have it here. And just quickly, if you're searching for something, you can quickly search here and change the setting, turn it on, turn it off, everything pretty much. Even textures, color correction textures, you can have all of them here. And if you are not like me, and if you name your maps properly, you're gonna know which map is for what. But again, I'm not using this that much, but it's pretty useful thing to have in the scene. Object properties here is also pretty self-explanatory. You just get the properties. You get your FSTOM object properties is something different than what you have from 3ds Max itself. I usually don't change anything here. If sometimes if I want to have motion blur on and off in a specific object, maybe I use it. But sometimes I use this visible to camera option. That's the only pretty much thing I use here. And yeah, you can have the same here as well. Like same as the same there, or just pretty much the same. I usually use here. I don't use some object properties. And the proxy exporter is just to export the object as a proxy. This is the path you want to export. These are the preview points. How are they going to be shown in the viewport? And then if you have animated object, you have to turn on the animation export, and then specify from which frame to which frame export it. And then if you want the object to be removed and replaced by its proxy, you have to turn this on and then export, which I'm not going to do. GPU manager again shows your GPUs. For me, it's just one 4090. And then render log, you get if you get any error, any render logs, you're gonna see them here. And we go to glare. Glare is also where you control your glare and bloom effect. And for this, I have to select the camera. as well. I want to show you, we have one, let me close these are here. Okay, we have one glare effect here on the camera, and we have one glare effect here. So these are all same, and pretty much the glare effect here is going to apply to all the cameras, and the glare here on the camera setting you have is camera specific effect, which means if I want to have a specific glare on this camera, I'm gonna check the override, and then I'm gonna turn it on, and then I'm gonna have my glare effect. And yeah, whatever you want, however you want. And then the size is, of course, the size of the glare. I mean, let's just make it like a normal glare effect. So yeah, let's keep it like that for now. Size is, of course, the size of the glare, how big we want it, how small we want it to be. I mean, I had this light here, which is in the wrong, just gonna put it back into the layer. It's okay. Curtain is on and visible. So it's pretty harsh example, but I think it's gonna work. So I'm gonna select the camera again. So just to don't get confused, these are same. I'm just playing with the settings here on my camera instead of just having it here. I can just turn this off and override off. You can see these settings are going to apply to my lens. And if I turn this override on and the glare setting off, that means these settings are going to be overridden by these settings, but the settings here are off. So I hope it's not confusing. So I'm going to turn it on, and the size, we're going to again make it like small, 0.1. And these are number of the rays we see here. Rotation is the rotation of the rays. Blur is like amount of blur you get, which is good if you want to switch between glare and bloom effect. And if you don't know, this is like these rays you see, this is glare effect, and the bloom effect is like this, the bloom effect. But usually the way I control it, I control with the contrast, because I want to have both, but maybe more towards bloom, less towards glare. So you can see here we have a contrast between bloom and glare. For example, when you put on 0.1, you still get the glare, but you have the bloom. So yeah. And these are also, again, different settings, which I'm not really gonna, I mean, it's just gonna change the way the bloom effect is happening. Is like, it's becoming more like halation, I would say, which is a good effect. And especially if you want to have like a filmic look on your image. But yeah, this kind of stuff I usually do it in post so that I have a better control of my image. I try to not play a lot with this here, but it's a good option to have. Yeah, I'm just gonna turn off the light here, so, and we will keep the glare effect, which is good. And the next part is camera. For camera, I have to again select the camera here as well. We describe the glare. Now I'm going to go through the geometry and depth of field. For the tone mapping, I'm going to cover it later when we arrive here in the tone mapping section in the render setting. And so I start with here with the top part: distortion, optical vignetting, and chromatic aberration. These three are, I just find some example of what they are. They are, you can see here, these are pretty much what the photographer are trying to avoid in their photos, but we add here ourselves. And the reason for that is just because to have a little bit of imperfection in the image and make the render look like an image. But I never touch these settings. And yeah, but I just wanted to describe what is that. And the vignetting is also the vignette effect you get around the lens, like the size of the image getting darker. And then chromatic aberration is the color shift on the image. I mean, this is like a pretty heavy example, like it's like too much. But I guess like these color shifts, and if I want to add it, I usually add it in post-production, but I usually leave it. I don't add any chromatic aberration, distortion, any optical vignette, nothing. But that's like very, yeah, my opinion, personal. So this is this. For the depth of field, we have again a depth of field setting here, and then we have one depth of field setting here, similar to glare, and then we have override on. So if you want to have one setting for all your cameras, you can just set it here, which I usually don't do. I always use the depth of field here per camera, because depending on the camera, we're going to have a different settings, different depth of field. So this is how we make it on. I don't use radius. I usually use F number, and the lower, the shallower depth of field, and the higher, the less depth of field we're going to have. And to describe the blades and everything, I think I can switch to the camera number 2 here. And I have furniture bedside. I'm just going to pause render before it crashes. And okay, what is this here? Let me quickly. I think I have all of them in one group. Yeah, I'm gonna put them in a new layer and then put it into the scene here and then disable it. What are these ones? Okay, I'm just gonna grab everything here as well and just gonna put it in the hide layer. So I want to have this cheesy strip light I modeled ages ago. I mean, it's not something I'm proud of anymore, but yeah, I put a lot of time modeling it. It looks a bit cheesy, but it's okay. I made it with rail clone. And look at the details. What did I write here? Okay. Okay, anyway, this is not about the detail. It's I did that because I want to show you okay, let me find my, where is my, okay, see. Just gonna refresh the scene once. Yeah. And yeah, you see we have this light flare, whatever it's gonna called, bloom effect. And yeah, I just want to play a little bit with the depth of field. Here I have a lower number, because of that we see the depth of field like more shallow depth of field. And the Fstorm RT window, I'm going to explain it in not in this topic, in another topic, probably in the same video. But I just want to mention this set focus is changing the custom here. Like whenever we click, we're gonna have the focus. Is like, yeah, I think you've seen it in other renderer as well. If I click here, for example, you're gonna have the wall and my cheesy LED stripe and the focus, and then the chair not in focus. I guess it's like when you, I guess it's a hope, is a positive things. I mean, they say it's positive when you see your old work and you feel a bit embarrassed. I guess that means you improved. if I see it now and I'm like, oh wow, look at that, what I made. It's just, I think it's gonna be a bit weird. I don't know. You let me know. And yeah, the blades are, it's not the same blades as we had in the glare effect. It's just the blades of the bokeh effect. We have rotation is also the rotation of the blades. I think here is a good example. I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it's almost like a round blade. I think if I put it on like 3, I think it's gonna be like, okay, I have to override. I think it's gonna be like more visible. Let me let me disable all this. I mean, we could change it here as well, but yeah, doesn't matter. I'm changing on the camera. I use it. I'm very much used to changing it on the camera. So yeah, you can see this is like different than the bloom effect. And yeah, I usually leave it at 8. The rotation is the amount of the rotation you get on the bokeh effect. Anamorphic is the anamorphic effect. I think you can go up to 1 or 2 or, okay, 2 is the highest number, but it's pretty extreme. I would just put it on 1 if I want to use it. Usually for architectural photography, I don't use anamorphic. I mean, it's a really nice effect. It's a really cool effect, but I don't really use it. Yeah. And I believe if we change the number to negative, the direction of the bokeh effect is changing from horizontal to vertical. So minus is like more horizontal. And then positive number 2 is more vertical. And this is what I see a lot in the movies, etc. But yeah, it's a cool effect. But I would suggest not going too crazy with the numbers. I think this is, if I want to use it, I think 0.5 would be the highest. Yeah, you know what it is. And yeah. And the last section here, which we don't have in the camera because it's not really, I mean, it's somehow related to camera, but it's not really camera specific section. I think because of that, we don't have it on the camera. We have it only here. Is baking geometry. Is this section is for when you are exporting your scene or your object and you are going to use it in some interactive real-time engines or websites like Unreal Engine, or there are websites where you can build this interactive scene. So what it does is basically export the 3D model with the lighting and the reflection and everything baked on the texture. So your model has to be properly unwrapped in order to use that. I'm not expert in that. I never used it, but I know how people using it. And yeah, I cannot use that on this model because this has I don't think it has like a proper UV. But I know this table, for example, here, it has a proper UVW, and you can see it's properly unwrapped. And if we turn on the baking geometry and choose a table, you can see the table and with the lights and everything is being baked. And then this texture in other software like Unreal or other website is going to apply it to the model, and then the model you will get the same view as you get inside Fstorm. But again, bear with me if I made a mistake. If you want to have like another discussion or you want to go deeper in this topic, just search on the Fstorm Facebook group and you're gonna definitely get more info. So in the environment tab, we have all the settings related to our environment, and we definitely want to go through it again in the lighting section, but now I'm just going to describe what is what. And yeah, for the people who are seeing this for the first time or using Fstorm for the first time. So the multiply is the amount of color or texture we have, the intensity of that. We can either use a texture, which is usually HDRI, or we can use color. Usually I use texture. I don't use color much. But just to show you, I'm gonna turn off the texture. You see the color is black. And so we don't see anything. Just gonna make it white. So this is just the color, just white color coming inside. And yeah, I mean, it's not that bad. But I always use this. And the multiply, I usually don't touch this. I put it on 1 because if I show you here, this is my environment texture. I put it here as instance. Here is my HDRI. I connect it to the color correction map, and then I apply the color correction map to here. So if I wanna change the multiply, I usually change it from here because I just have the setting next to the HDRI itself, and I can also have different HDRI, different texture at the same time. So what I usually do, I usually do this. I usually put one color correction map as my main texture for the HDRI. I apply it here. Let me just rename it. HDRI, and then I connect all the HDRIs I have to this one. So it might be a bit confusing, but the reason for that is that if let me load another texture and then connect it to the HDRI map, I'm gonna see the HDRI, the lighting is gonna be updated. And the good thing with this workflow is that I can play with the lighting of the new HDRI separately and have the setting I had before for the other HDRI here saved. And yeah, this way I can have I can set 2, 3, 4 different HDRIs and then connect them one by one to see which one is really working. But again, this is the lighting section. We're gonna go deeper into it, but this was just for the preview. And then we have direct lighting, which in the Fstorm user manual it says enabling direct lighting makes the HDRI work like the emission light, and it helps to get sharper shadows. And just to check the settings here, I usually turn on the direct lighting and don't touch. I have never ever touched this section except for turning on the direct lighting. Like the first thing I do before even I apply HDRI, I turn on this and then I will start playing with my HDRI. But for the sake of this video, I made a test. Here is the test I made. I mean, this is the loaded in Photoshop. So I changed the samples here. Let me put it to the side. So the sample ratio, I changed the sample ratio, and then the direct lighting. I didn't change the hemisphere and then the resolution. I mean, I did change them, but I didn't see any result. There was no difference. So I'm not gonna explain that. So for here, I put the sample ratio on the highest number, which is number 2, and this is the default number. And you can see the image, the overall image is brighter. It looked like the GI is working more and the light is spreading nicely into the scene. So yeah, of course I like the number 2, but I realized if you lower the number, the brighter your scene is gonna be. So maybe if you have a small opening, a small window, maybe it's better to lower the ratio. But again, I never done that. And yeah. And again, here is with the sample ratio 0.2 and the direct lighting enabled. And again, this one is same with disabled direct lighting. You can see like when it's disabled, the lighting becomes like more harsh in the shadows. And when it's enabled, the light spreads more evenly into the scene. So I would suggest just turn it on and don't touch any of the settings. But again, yeah, feel free to do whatever you want. And the alpha environment is for what we see on the environment. Just for the sake of preview, I'm gonna take the floor and the chair. So I'm gonna change exposure to 0. Yeah, something like that. I wanna change it too much. And yeah, this is, if I disable it, we see the HDRI we have. If I enable it, of course, you're gonna see the alpha we have on the environment. Depends on your need. You can play with it. And then under this, we have the environment render element parameters. This is the parameter you have if you want to have a separate element for your environment. What that means, let's keep the ID on 100, and if I come to the render element and add material ID channel and I'm just turning on the green color to see, and change the ID to 100, we're gonna see the environment is set into this ID. And yeah, we can, if I turn off the reflection, we just see the environment, but this is with the reflection effect. I mean, this is a part of the environment, a part of the elements. So I'm just gonna skip it just to describe what is this here, which, yeah, you can have it if you want. Again, didn't use it much. And we have matte projection. Let me turn on the environment. So matte projection is for, we usually see it when the people rendering cars on the streets. And so it's like when you apply matte to a surface, the surface become invisible, but it's catching the shadows. Just to show it to you, I'm gonna, here I have my wooden floor material applied to an Fstorm switch material, and here I just have a simple Fstorm material. I didn't change anything here except for turning on the matte. So I mean, all of this, again, I'm gonna go more into the detail in the material section, but this one just for the sake of showing what is matte and what it does. If I use a second material, you see my material is disappeared, but we get the shadows. That's how people render cars in the environment. So they get the shadows, but without having the geometry visible. So geometry becomes just shadow catcher. I don't know if that's the correct word for it, but yeah. And okay, this is Photoshop. I'm just gonna hide it. And yeah, and the projection here is when you have a texture, you can move the texture so you have your car matching perfectly with the road, and to be in the right place, for object to be in the right place. And yeah, that's for that. And I'm gonna if just one more thing, I mean, yeah, let's show it here. If you go to kernel setting and process alpha, you turn on the alpha, so you get a transparent image with your object and your shadows, just to show. But again, the kernel setting, we're gonna cover it again in a separate part. And so yeah, that's it. Let me switch back material to the material I had. I switch it back to 1, and I'm gonna go out of the isolation mode. The exposure was on 8, if not mistaken. Yeah. So the next part is atmosphere, and if I turn it on, it's just basically the fog atmosphere. Height is the height of the fog we have. Softness is how soft, how dense you want to be, and the distance is also the same. I believe if I lower the number, it's like the distance between each particle, basically. So like 5, I think is gonna be like completely white here. And then if I make the distance, yeah, I think it works until some certain distance. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, you just have to, I mean, of course, for the interior, you don't need it, but you just have to play with the settings, the colors, the glossy, and then the render element is the same as what we had in the environment. So yeah, I mean, if you have some exterior rendering where you need to have atmosphere applied, I guess you just turn it on, and then of course not with these settings, you have the higher numbers, and yeah, just have to play with it. So this is basically the environment section. We go to tone mapping, my favorite section. We have tone mapping a few different places. We have one here, which I usually don't touch, because again, the setting we have here is going to apply to all the cameras, all the views. And we have one here, which is usually what I use. And also we have tone mapping on camera. This is also, again, camera specific tone mapping. If you have different cameras and you need different tone mapping, this is the best way to do it. And yeah, so we start the synchronized means if I turn it off and then change here, for example, to 4, it's not going to change on the tone mapping and the material. If I turn it on, it's gonna be they both gonna be synchronized with each other. It's not that this one is taken from there. If I now change it to 4, you see here is also changing. And also if I override the tone mapping here, and then you see the settings are being synchronized with the settings on the camera. So the camera is like the top layer, and then the setting here, and then the setting here. But so I think the best way is to disable this for now. So we have the settings here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to yeah, I'm thinking about how to describe it. But the best way is to have it on the camera for each camera. So I'm gonna have the settings I have here 4 1 1 0 0 1 0 0.1 0.1, and then the kernel exposure put on 8. So and then I'm gonna enable this. So now they are synchronized, right? So if I change this one to 8, you see the exposure has changed here and the exposure has changed here. So we can completely skip this. We can just close it. We don't need that. So basically you need to have this one synchronized and then this one override. So whatever you have here is going to apply here automatically. If you don't want it to apply here, you can just disable the synchronize. But yeah. Okay, I hope it was not too confusing. Yeah, sometimes I try to describe the stuff in detail. I have the feeling there are stuff very important. I want to describe it in detail, and then later when I look at the video, I realize I'm just saying too much blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, just waste. I don't want to waste your time. So the diagram is very important here, but we're not going to go through it now. It's like, it's a good thing to know how it works and to have the eye on it. It helps with a lot of things. And we start from here, the synchronize I described already, and then the curve is just like a simple curve we have in any other software, any post-production software like Photoshop, or yeah, you can turn it on and off. I usually use it, but not too crazy. I mean, for now, I just leave it. I'm not going to use it. Exposure is our exposure, how bright our scene we want to be. And saturation is saturation, of course. And color preserve is like kind of add extra saturation for the highlights and everything. And if I change it from, I don't know if you can see the difference, but like, let me see what is the highest number. It's 100. Yeah, you see is that just that the highlights are getting a bit saturated. This is just for the clipping all the high saturation. I usually put it on 1. Maybe I sometimes I go lower than that, but I don't. By default is in 2, which in my opinion adds a little bit of. I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, I think you're not gonna even notice the difference I'm changing here, but it clips a little bit of saturation. And the type of the tone mapping, linear is of course in linear, and simple is the old way of tone mapping, and there is 2 new ones, advanced and rain art. So yeah, each of them, they are just acting differently, especially towards the highlights and overexposed area. I like the sample one and the advanced, but yeah, I mean, there are cases, maybe I use Reinhardt, but yeah, it's just not, just see which one is like fitting best to your scene. Contrast is the contrast of the scene. Burn value is amount of the clipping of the burn value. How much detail are we going to keep? Usually I put it on 0 or I go to -1. I try to not go lower than that, but depending on the scene. For example, here is working. Like if I put it on 0, you see these are getting a little bit, yeah, these are completely overexposed. You see the RGB is like 255, is like completely white. There is no details. And if I put it on -1, yeah, I get a little bit detail back. And of course, if I put it on -10, the whole image becomes darker. So I save like a bit detail there as well, but just the whole image just looks different. I mean, I don't want to say it's a bad look. I did that in the past, but I had this on -10 and then try to add a bit of contrast using the curve. I mean, not inside the Fstorm, but inside the post-production program. But yeah, these are all depending on what you want. But I usually don't go too crazy with this number. And yeah, changing to advanced, you can see the structure, the whole thing is changing. I like the advanced version on this shot, so I will keep it on advanced. Gamma is the amount of gamma we have in the scene. If you want to, it's a good way to add contrast. If you want to add like a little bit of contrast, not it's not adding like the dirty contrast like we have here. So I usually keep that one on 0, even sometimes minus. But yeah, you can use this and then add a little bit of contrast, add a little bit of brightness, even 15. Yeah, I mean, why not? Vignette is again vignette effect, which I don't use it here. Black tone is for if you want to add some sort of tone into your black color. For example, if I put on, oh, what happens? No, sorry. Here I want to add a little bit of blue. Maybe 50. Yeah, you can see like it just adds a bit of color. I added a little bit blue to the black tone, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of maybe green, maybe magenta to the white color. Wow, that's a lot. I think I would like to add a little bit of green tone. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you know how it is. Like, this is the green tone I want, but not this one, not this harsh. Maybe if I put it on 10, if I put it on 20, yeah, I mean, it adds like a different tone to image. Again, I would prefer to add it in post, but the biggest difference between here and the post is that here you are working on a raw, real 32-bit image. So you have a lot of control. You don't get this control unless you save your file in a linear version, which is again by its own is another story, but I'm not bothered with doing that. So if I want to do anything special, I would do it here. If not, I would just leave it for post. So let me just make everything back to white and black, like what we had. And the white balance is it's white balance. The warmer tone, I'm going to give the colder tone, and the colder color here are going to give the warmer tone to the image. This is again also something you can do in post. And yeah, image blur, it makes the image blurry. I mean, it's part of the post-production as well. And image sharp, it makes the image sharp. So that's also part of the post-production. again, we're not, I mean, we're not gonna go like to these crazy numbers, but yeah, sometimes I play with it a little bit. Like I usually would like to have my image not super sharp and render looking, so I play a little bit and then I just like get some kind of yeah, not, how do I explain, not clinical render looking image. So I guess no, not yet. And then there is like LUT settings, LUT settings, and there's also kernel exposure. Kernel exposure is connected to the exposure. If I wanna read from the description, gives render engine a guidance of exposure range you are working with. It's like, for example, if you need to have like an exposure of hundreds, so it makes sense to increase the kernel exposure. But in my case, my exposure is in 15. If I put the kernel exposure in 0.1, the sampling and calculation of the light and shadow sometimes turn to be like weird. Like what happened here, I mean, like the shadows on the wall are gone, and then we have like this dark spot. So it's better to have somewhat in a like, for example, 15 to 15 is too much. Maybe 5 to 15 would be better option. But yeah, maybe even 1. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you get how it works. Like that, the distance shouldn't be like crazy. And yeah, it says here also it's suggested to have like a kind of same number to have the fastest sampling and better results. So I guess like 10 and 15 would be more realistic, and I can imagine based on the lighting I have, I think this number gives me a better results and more realistic results. Here for the load option, we can load any color lookup table, and it adds a little bit of extra on top of the image. This one again, we can add it in post-production process, but usually I try to add it here because it just works better here with the image. I will have extra LUTs added on the post-production as well, but I usually try to have something here, like this one, which is from Corona Render. The strength is like the number of the intensity. Now we go to interactive render, and close this. If I run RT mode, you see the interactive rendering is started, and with right click, I can, this is what I showed on the beginning of the video. I just added here, so I can just with right click, I can start my RT render. So let me make the window a bit bigger. Here we have the elements, and then here we can see different passes of the render, I would say. Like this shows the image in the raw. This shows our raw image without any tone mapping applied. This is for sampling for the noise, which we are going to cover it in the kernel settings. And I guess this is just to show this is also for noise and sampling, yeah. And the first one is our last render. This is locking the viewport. If you have it locked, it's gonna render the viewport you have locked here. If you take it off, you're gonna have whatever you select on the viewport. It's just gonna render that. Simple. Saving, you save the image. This saves all the image and the elements, and send it to the frame buffer, 3ds Max frame buffer, just to have like if you want to compare something. Again, here copy image, basically showing the tone panel, tone mapping panel. Let's pause the render. This fits the render to the frame, and then this one fits the frame to the render image we have. Yeah, this is for the region rendering. If it's working like Photoshop, if you click Shift, you can add more region. If you click Alt, you can remove the regions you want. And by one click, you can remove all of that. And the other useful thing is this optical zoom. When you click on this, you see your image size is gone, and depending on the window you have, the whole window is going to be rendered. And then the good thing is that we can zoom in here, and yeah, if you want to work the details, this is the best way to work on details and see how are they looking. Yes, it's just I use that a lot in the, especially when you have like one camera, you check the different details and the stuff. It's good. It's very helpful. For set focus, this is for set white balance in your image. Wherever you click, you're gonna have your white balance. Just gonna click here on the white color kind of. And then what is this one? Pick material. You can click on the object and it picks the material from the object here. Yeah. Okay, that's a simple material. And this is also very useful. You pick the object in the scene. For example, if I want to pick this, I click here and then I have the object selected. Perfect. Light mix, which we are going to talk about it more in the lighting section, but we all know what is light mix. It shows all the lights you have in the scene, and we can just play with them and then change them. But I don't have any light. And again, I'm just gonna bring this back to the default. And yeah, this shows the statics. This is also very useful to see what you have in your scene, and if you are running out of VRAM, you can see what is using the most of the VRAM, or based on here, you can see what is what is causing some problem in your scene. And this is also another useful tip is for setting your render resolution. If I put it on 50, it's gonna just render in half size. It's good to get the previews and stuff, to get the fast render without changing here. And if I put it on 100, get the size you have here. This is for background image, load file, bake render image. Okay. I'm using, this one is also important, prevent render. Yes, if you enable that, no matter what you do in your scene, as the render is gonna keep rendering. It's not gonna restart it. It's a really good feature when I want to see some example, for example, of the light, or when I want to have like some idea of some material, but still there is work to do. I would just fire my RT render and then lock this and then put it aside, and I start doing stuff whatever I want to do. Or if I want to, for example, unwrap something, I start to unwrap it, model it, whatever, and then I come back. So basically it's good for saving time. I come back on the scene and see how is it going with the rendering. And this is reloading the scene. Is yeah, sometimes you add some object, you do something, you unhide some layer, and then it's like you need to reload the scene. I mean, okay, this is like, I don't want to have it here, but let me put it somewhere here. And you might add, and then next to it is the instance geometry update. What this one is doing is that if I move the object, you see it's going to be updated in real time in the scene. But you might ask why this object is not updated in the scene. It's just because this was hide into the layer. When you unhide the layer, you have to reload the scene. Yeah. And yeah, if you disable this, no matter what you do, it's not going to update the scene, which is good. This one is faster this way. So if you don't need it, keep that disabled. But honestly, the render engine is so fast. I always have this one enabled on my scene. And that was for RT. So the last part is kernel settings. The first option we have is the render samples, is the number of maximum samples we want in our render, in each frame of render to be calculated. The higher the number, the less noise, and the render time is going to take longer. The lower is going to render fast, but it's going to end up a bit noisier depending on your scene. Probably this is the only part you need to change depending on the scene, on the camera, and a lot of stuff, on your lighting. But usually I would say for most of the production render, I would put it on like 10K max, 7K. I mean, I'm talking about not this size. I'm talking about rendering in big size like 4K, 5K. And yeah, you can see with mixing it with denoise, you can even go get along with pretty lower numbers. So and then here we have time limits. If you want each frame to be rendered in a specific time, you don't care about the sample. You can say, okay, I want each frame to be rendered in 2 minutes. It doesn't matter how many samples, just 2 minutes. So you can put this specific time here. And I read on the website, on the manual, that the time limit doesn't work with RT. So it works only with the final render. So max ray is amount of ray bonds on your scene. It's usually by default is put on 8. Usually it works fine with number 8 in the scene, but like you can see, the lower number is gonna it's just not gonna work. Like 8 is enough, but usually I put it on 16 or 32, and I might put it on higher number. I remember for this shot here, I put it on I rendered a few years ago, this one. For this close-up, I had to change the max depth because of so many glasses. And the number 8 was looking dark. It was making the glasses dark, because you can imagine there is, like, for example, this glass, we can see the rays has to go from the glass behind and then here and then through here. So we have like 3 layers of glass. It's all has to be calculated, and they are all out of focus. So you can imagine how heavy this kind of calculation can be. So I would suggest just start with 8 and then higher number. And yeah, ray threshold is just I'm just reading through the manual for this one, because I know there are some errors in scene which I can fix with ray threshold. Usually this number is pretty enough, but sometimes I want to show it to you here on the manual. You see this error. Sometimes we get this kind of error. It looks like when you have two geometry like sticking to each other, like, or two objects are like exactly the surface, the polygons are on top of each other, and the render cannot, there is no space between them. Render cannot calculate the space. So basically this ray threshold is that space between the geometry for one object. So the like lower number, you see it messes up with the scene, and then it goes the same with higher number. I mean, depending on the scene, but usually I think default number is this one, and it's usually working fine in a lot of cases. Light sample is the sample of the light, how much the light is going to be calculated. Again, the lower number is going to give us more noisy results, and the super high number is pretty unnecessary, I would say. Like 32 or 16 would be totally enough in most cases. Random, the material preview sample is, I believe, for the materials. Let's open, for example, this wood material here. I want to make this one pretty big to see if it's really going to affect. If I put it on, okay, 16 is the lowest number. If I update the preview, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can see it here on the video, but and I think, okay, 256 is the highest number. And if I update, yeah, it looks, yeah, I don't know if it's going to be visible on the video, but it was pretty noisy around the object. I mean, the noise were more visible around the material, around the sphere. But yeah, I honestly, I have never changed it. And then we have gray material mode. This is just, if you on it, it's going to just override all the materials. It's good to see the lighting in your scene. And then here you have control on displacement, geo pattern, fur, volumetric, FSOM scatter. You can disable and enable them. Here you have third-party scattering, like forest back. You can again disable, enable. Here we can turn on and off the motion blur. I mean, the duration, I guess, when it goes on lower, we get the more motion blur effect. If you want to test it, we can just put this pool tree here, add a key, and then move to number. Okay, I'm just gonna stop and move to number 10 just to have a stupid animation here going on. So I put it on frame 5. Yeah, the higher number is gonna make it more effect more, and then the lower number is gonna make it less. But one thing you have to do is to turn it on here. and then yeah, you can change the sample for the object. And what is the next? Direct lighting kernel. If, as far as I know, this is another way of calculating the light in the scene. It's kind of a mix between the path tracing and another way of calculating light, which on the website it says ambient occlusion. And it has some really specific uses. It increased the rendering time, but gives a less realistic result. And I remember I use it in some project where I need to like render many images, and the quality was not really important. It was like some sort of studio lighting, but like rendering like 500 models. So I turned it on just to make the rendering fast. For normal use, I usually don't touch it. And bitmap compression is also very important. It just compresses all the bitmaps in the scene and makes them to take less VRAM of your, like I can show it here. I have it off, and the bitmap memory is almost 2 gigabytes, 1.8. And when you turn it on, the render calculation, the starting of the RT render, it takes a little bit more time. And you can see when I turn it on, the bitmap memory dropped to 0.5 from 1.8. So you can see how helpful it can be in big scenes. And usually I don't see any drop. I've never noticed any drop in the quality. One thing I realized I didn't describe is this glossy preserve. This is one of my favorite settings, and it's like, if I zoom in here on the, I want to just make a crop render from here. So like the higher number, just keep the glossy as they are, and then the lowest number is just gonna make the glossiness less strong. It's like bringing a little bit of the details to highlights. It's basically what it does, and then it looks a bit less glossy. But I would say it's just because like it's like from what it says, it preserves glossiness. But I usually don't go too crazy with that number. Like 0.8, 0.7 would be enough. And just to yeah, we have it now compressed. We have render beauty pass. If you turn it off, then you're not gonna render the beauty pass. The noise tape you have, it's on film here, but since we have the denoiser on and we put the use digital noise, so this one is basically on digital, not film. So if you turn off the denoiser, you can just use film. Process alpha is going to calculate the alpha in your scene, and your image is gonna be shown with alpha. I think we used that in the when I was showing in the environment part. And yeah, adaptive sampling is the number of noise we have. Like each pixel, when they meet this number, the Fstorm is not going to do any calculation on that pixel. So it's going to move to another pixel. So that basically means it doesn't waste time on pixel more than this noise threshold. So it never goes lower than this noise threshold. I think this noise preview here, it shows like the green parts are all met this number, and basically Fstorm is not doing calculation. If it puts the energy on the red parts and tries to bring them to green, that means it tries to bring them to this noise level. And you can see if I increase the noise level to from 0.01 to 0.1, like 10 times more, you can see more of the image become green, just because I changed the noise threshold. So most of the image now are meeting this number. And the opposite can also happen. If I make it like 0.01, you can see pretty much the entire image is going to change to. So it doesn't update because I hit the maximum samples. I either can like update the scene. I usually turn on and off the interactive rendering, and then it just updates the scene. And I move something in the scene. But yeah, this is what we had. See? And then 0.01. Again, it's all gone. So depending on your scene, I must say pretty much for all the renderings, this number is enough. I mean, for exterior, it can be even higher, like 0.05. But sometimes if you have dark interior, if you want your image to be like completely clean, noise-free, without using a denoiser, then yeah, you can go lower than that. So this one, it sets the initial value before the adaptive sampling starts. This is what I read from the Fstorm user manual, and I never used it, and I don't think you need to really use it. But if you want, you can experiment to get what is working like. And the dark threshold is the amount of sampling in the dark area when you have like, I don't know, for example, on the door or like somewhere here where it's super dark. Basically, having renderer spending time on here to make it clear, it doesn't really make sense, because even if it's noisy, it's dark and black. Like for example, this line here, so we're not gonna see it. So I think the default value is always working fine. And for the minimum sampling on the website, it says like, if option is not set, automatic value is used. That's basically what I do all the time. I don't set any option here. I remember in the past it was kind of a deal to have the faster render speed, but no, I must say the render speed is pretty fast enough, and with the denoise and all the tools like the bitmap compression and everything you have, I don't think it's necessary to come here and then deal with all these settings. But again, it's your choice if you wanna play with it. And a static noise is keeps the noise pattern as much as possible in the same place. This is really useful for animation, and again, it was very useful, especially before having the denoiser, could help to denoise the animation easily in third-party software. But now again, with denoiser in place, this is also not really, I don't think you really need to change that for the animation or stills. And yeah, that was basically it. I hope everything I said here was useful for you. And like I said in the beginning of the course, I am not a technical artist. And if you think I said anything technical or anything at all, anything wrong, just let me know. I'll make sure to correct it for the next videos. And yeah, if you see anything in the scene that you want me to describe more, or I missed anything, just let me know. I am not good at this recording tutorials, but I know the more I do it, the better it gets. And if I get the feedback from you, it's gonna help a lot. Thank you for your time, and see you in the next episode.